Well, congrats on the film. It's really unique. I had a blast watching it, and a lot of the themes hit me and are super prevalent today. So,
I
congrats on that. Off with like obviously being both, having two hats, writing and directing. What was your approach going into such a unique story to tell?
Oof. Well, because I wrote the script in 2013, I'll be honest, sometimes it feels like a little bit of a reach stepping back to remember where my head was at. But I think I do know that when I'm as a writer, whenever I'm writing, I'm seeing it play out visually. Always. There's nothing I'm not writing on the page that I'm not yeah, seeing it like a film scene in my head. And I think that definitely is probably informed by the fact that I'm a director as well. But I feel like in many ways I wrote as a child before I ever knew I was going to be director. And I always did that, even when I was a small
Wow.
child. Like no matter what, if I'm writing, I'm seeing the movie play in my head. And I just feel what it needs to be. And I think then very quite organically that made sense that I ended up being a director because I already had the picture of what it needed to look like. I just had to then you know bring that to life in reality. And but I think what's so incredible, the magic of that is obviously what's in your head, and then what ends up being in reality is always slightly different. Um, and how to honor the sort of the happy accident and the
Mm.
organicness and the authenticity of when all these incredibly talented people come together to create a unified vision. And I think that's a really beautiful process. And it's messy like any birth, right? But I love that rawness and all of those sort of surprises, but also the beauty of these things happening that are so profound that when you have a moment that you have an emotion that you captured on the page, but you didn't know if it was going to come to life the way you envisioned, and then it does, is deeply meaningful.
It's crazy that you wrote it in 2013 because it feels like the theme of classism is could not be more prevalent than it is today. And it's the last 10 years, it's gotten even more so. How is that like almost like it's like you were ahead of your time writing it? Like how is that seeing things unfold and kind of almost parallel even more now than it was back
I
then?
think I think it's that classism has always existed. Just in some decades, we're better at sticking our heads in the sand and pretending it doesn't. But living in South Africa, you never forget. And I wrote, I think honestly, I owe South Africa a lot as a creative because so much of what I write about is informed by spending most of my adult life there, right? And I think the disparity, the wealth disparity, the resource disparity that exists is so ingrained and interlaced in society. It can never leave you. It's always in your face. So I think writing the fix felt very natural, felt very organic, and very, of course, this is the way the world is. I think growing up in the States, I definitely got a feeling when I left that, oh my gosh, I spent my entire childhood in a scenario where we were like in this magical little bubble with our heads in the sand, where we knew these things were there, but we thought we truly believed the problem was solved, except for we didn't truly believe that. It was just like blatant denial. I remember talking to my parents about this growing up, where they're like, no, these things are very, very real. This is very real, and it's still real. Um, and yeah, I think because with South Africa, we didn't need a hashtag Black Lives Matter to
Mm.
know that, right? I think politically what that country has gone through, and also with the struggle and it's a remarkable accomplishment that there was a peaceful transition to power in 94, like truly remarkable. Like I still am profoundly affected by how realizing how miraculous that was, regardless of what's happened since. That I think there's a lot about South African history that really inspired me, because when I moved to the country, there was a lot of denial in the States about things still.
Always are.
But in
Always is.
Africa, yeah, in South Africa, everyone talked very openly about everything. And there was a dynamic of openness and open confrontation in a not in an aggressive way, but in a like, we're real, this is the way it is, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to work through this, that I thought was really admirable, and I thought the US could learn from.
You mentioned writing as a child. I love getting this, and I didn't plan to ask this question, but I love getting people's like origin stories. Do you remember like the first things you wrote as a child?
uh yeah, there was a lot of animal stuff. I really wanted to talk to animals. That was like my original goal as an adult, was just to talk to animals. So originally why I went to South Africa was to do large predator behavioral research. Um, but I think it was always a lot, it's interesting. It was always definitely angsty. It was always some sort of trouble or larger than life interpersonal challenge that needed to be solved. It was always dark. It was almost always dystopian. I was an emo kid.
With dystopian futures, those are always fun to play with, right? And I think I have a lot of friends that are art directors and makeup artists and things like that. And I look for that more and more now. And obviously, the fix had it was like a kaleidoscope of like fun things, including the masks, I know gets tough in filming. How was that to play with that, with like the clothes, the sets,
It
the
was so fun. It was so fun. And also to be like, to speak to my cast, to be like, okay, well, what Gina's mask look like? Like, we need to capture all of your personalities in what your masks are. You know, and that is like actually like a fun like team building exercise of like, or that creative exercise of like, if you're gonna like show who your character is based on what mask you wear, what is it gonna be? And we had all these creative conversations around that, and then that informed the design of the masks. And that was, I mean, I come from a theater background. I love that stuff, like, and any visual representation of the internal.
we went through COVID and everything like that. And I think people had their own unique takes on that. And again, kind of ahead of it's weird.
So
And
weird.
how is that? That's another one. Like you've seen, there's a few things you've seen now that again are prevalent, and again, everything cycles, right?
Just let all the producers out there know I can do that with cast too. If you let me cast an unknown, I'm
Gotta get
pretty
that
good
out
at
there.
knowing who's gonna break in the next couple of years. I've been doing that for years, but I'm not important enough. Like, it doesn't matter. Like,
Oh,
but
stop.
by the time they break, like, but it's like when you're spotting someone, like, I'm like, her, and that time. I remember I had um Sophia Botella and John Boyega attached to a project years ago, and I was so excited about it. And I was shopping it around, and everyone was like, "Well, we do love John, and we love Attack the Block, but like, we just can't make the numbers work with Sophia and John." And I'm just like, I hate it. And then my attachment agreement with him lapsed, and I think a couple months later, Star Wars was announced, and then everyone
Wow.
circled back, being like, "Do you still have this project?" I'm like, "No, because none of you came on board."
Back to the film, obviously, I mean, also the characters are very complex and layered. Even Daniel's character, which I was surprised
I
and
love
saw a
that.
bunch of.
Yeah.
How was that to explore? I mean, like you mentioned, obviously exploring the sets and the design, but then obviously the depth of the characters and like all the different layers and the arc with Ella and everything like that. That's must be fun to play with as a scribe, but also behind the camera as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important to me to show every side, especially with Daniel's character. I didn't want it to be just obvious that he was the villain. And we actually worked and talked about playing it to try like that we wanted to show all of the things in his life, all of the pressures on him that had led him to be the type of person he was. Because frankly, yeah, it's easy to say he's the villain character, sure. And there are many things he argues for that are hugely problematic and that are not okay. But from his worldview and his perspective, it's not like he's not right about problems. It's not like his belief that he's like, I don't think mankind's going to be on board for this change. I don't think they're ready for it. It's all well and good that you think this is going to be a solution, but like, I really think you're overestimating what people are going to be in for, right? And yeah, sure, you can argue that that's for his selfish motivation because he doesn't want to lose the control of having his drug be the answer. But I actually suspect he's right. We talked about that a lot. And also the frustration of being like, well, if you can only save so many people, and we know most people are going to die, how do you make that choice? It's like Sophie's choice, right? And ethically, no individual has the right to make that choice. Of course not. But his argument of why he would choose XYZ, hugely classist, hugely problematic. But I also hate that no one reads anymore. I also think that it does something to brains when no one's reading, and that we're losing something, and that we're all getting dumber, and that that's a great loss. I that resonates with me deeply, right? Like the
Mm.
power of literature just to like understand other perspectives and understand the world, and get exposed to things you wouldn't be otherwise in really profound ways. And I'm feeling that loss every day. So there are lines and kernels of truth. Like I don't feel like it's ever black and white. It's all shades of gray in terms of what people are capable of and who they are. And I really wanted to honor O'Connor's as a three-dimensional person, and actually be able to empathize with him sometimes.
It's awesome. The best villains are the ones that like you don't know. It can go either way. And
And
um
Daniel, brilliant. He's exceptional. He really got all that.
and I guess the last question I would ask, by the way, I completely agree with you, especially with AI now. Talk about another thing that's prevalent. Oh God, yeah, we are getting dumber by the second.
We outsource our brains. We're gonna lose. It's like you don't exercise the tool. What do you think happens?
The last question I would
Yeah,
say is there's always these scenes that are like the most difficult to get through, and I love those stories. Were there any scenes that were, and not difficult from a logistics perspective, but like one that you're especially proud of, or a sequence you're especially proud of because it took the most work and effort? Like you said, you had to push yourself or push
oh,
the
we had
cast.
so many. Jump across the atrium
Okay.
was 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 a logistical feat. We had to find the right location. That was at UCT, University of Cape Town. We had to get the permissions. I only trusted a handful of riggers with that job. Ollie, who came in and did the rigging for me, is just next level good, and for anything like that. Um, um, Grace's stunt double, Sine, is a dear friend of mine. She flipped
Oh,
and killed it. But they were sending me like the videos and the rehearsals. I was like on set, and like I'm getting these videos coming. I'm just like, holy shit, this is great. This is crazy. And then Grace's courage, because she let us rig her up.
wow.
So Sune did the full jump, but we needed that close up to see Grace and camera come in. And so we did actually put her all in the rigging, and Sune like talked her through it and made sure she felt comfortable and brought her back to bring her in. And she was hanging, like a couple of stories up in the air as the actress. And we know all the safety mechanisms are in place, and we do not mess around. And that's why I brought Ollie on board, because you go with the people who 150% know what they're doing, and put every single checks and balances in place there. But it's still a brave thing for an actress to do. And Grace's courage and her gameness, her keenness to get it right, and her desire to really honor this character who's so fierce. And I think the joy of working together with such an exceptional team. And also we were doing some really massive stunts in one day.
Mm.
And it was very, very funny, because my stunt team, in order to get the rigging then, so they had the main stunt rigged, and that was a full day and a half exercise to get that set up safely and done right. And then after we shot it, we turned it around and we were shooting drama between Grace and Daniel on the corridor, while our stunt team is very quietly sneaking around in the background, re-rigging so
Oh,
we could get the jump down the stairwell. And then we ended up doing that in a very short amount of time, to get it all in one day, because technically we should have had 2 days, but with budget you couldn't.
mm.
So we knew we only had like, I think, 3 takes of the stairwell jump and very minimal rehearsal. But Sune is a ballet dancer and an exceptional athlete, and her balance and flexibility is off the hook. And she and Ollie just were like, we got this. And yeah, it's a credit to all of them. But that was a fun day, because we were doing all that, plus I had second unit shooting, doing a pickup shot outside, so I'm like running back and forth dealing with that,
I
doing
can
like
imagine.
this hugely climactic performance scene between Daniel and Grace, and they had to be so focused. And meanwhile, Stunts is being as quiet as they can in the background, trying to get the rigging set up for the next stunts.
Wow. Well, I know you got to go, so we could do this all day, and there's
Sadly, I know I
uh,
could.
hopefully we get to do this again because this is a blast, and I can't wait for your next project. And I just
Thank
had a
you
great
so much
time.
for watching the film, and for the great questions. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Can't wait to do it again. So, and congrats again, seriously. And I love talking about this. This was great. So,
Thank you. So glad you enjoyed it. I'm
thank
very, very thrilled I got to make it.